You ever see a bridge snap in half like a toothpick, with a cement truck's back and just dropping out of sight, swallowed by a muddy Tennessee creek? Because that's the sound that kicked off the war. In our neighborhood, and let me tell you, it wasn't thunder that made everyone come running. It was the echo of authority finally hitting a line it shouldn't have crossed. Yeah, that happened. Trenton. Vale just stood on his porch, arms folded, face barely hiding a smile, watching the chaos play out exactly the way he'd planned. See, that bridge wasn't some store-bought prefab thing. Trenton built it himself. Every plank, every nail, all cut and carried across the yard with hands so calloused they could probably sand the wood just by holding it. To him, the bridge wasn't just a shortcut across the creek. It was the line in the sand between his world and the one Judith Bramwell, the new queen of the Riverside Meadow HOA, was hell-bent on conquering. And when her cement trucks started rolling over it, like his property was community territory, well, let's just say Judith didn't know who she was dealing with. The morning it all blew up, Trenton barely flinched as that truck's tires groaned and the planks started to give. When the mud shot up and painted the windshield, and the driver jumped out swearing, neighbors appeared like moths to a bonfire, one woman gasping, another whispering, "That's Trenton's bridge, isn't it?" It wasn't even 5 minutes before Judith herself screeched up in her SUV, clipboard in hand, navy blazer sharp as her voice. "Mr. Vale, what on earth did you do?" she demanded. Trenton just sipped his coffee, slow as ever, and finally walked down the porch steps, wood creaking under boots that had probably outlived half the houses on this street. "Funny," he said. "I was about to ask you the same thing." The truck driver tried to explain, said the HOA lady told him this was a shortcut to Willow Bend Road, that he didn't know it was someone's yard. But everyone knew whose land this was. Everyone knew Judith, too. Her warnings, her letters, her obsession with lawn height and fence color, nobody challenged her until today. She promised the county would be called, lawyers would be involved, all that jazz. But Trenton was ready. He pulled out a folder with boundary maps, stamped and sealed by the county itself. "You might want to look at this before you start making calls," he said. "That bridge, my land, every inch." He had photos, dates, even video, like he'd been expecting this showdown for months. And honestly, he had. Because this fight didn't start with the bridge snapping. It started the first time Judith moved in, with her real estate smile and her habit of making rules for everyone else. The kind of woman who bans wind chimes and fines people for the color of their shed, who sees a neighborhood as something to be tamed, not lived in. Trenton kept his yard clean, paid his dues, tried to mind his own business, but Judith just kept coming, clipboard in hand, always looking for another battle to pick. It got personal fast. The new builds across the creek gave her an excuse. She sent cement trucks across his bridge, over and over, leaving ruts in his grass and cracks in the boards. She called it a common use area, but the survey said otherwise. Trenton showed her the paperwork. She shrugged it off. "Maybe you should have come to the HOA meeting last week," she said. Like that gave her the right. Trenton tried to reason with her. Even went to her house, her perfect little flower beds and decorative stones, every inch screaming control. But she saw his land as hers to manage, his work as something to be voted on by people who'd never lifted a hammer. Every time he tried to push back, she just doubled down. New rules, more trucks, threats of fines, even a warning for damaging community property when he started cleaning up her mess. It wore him down. The bridge wasn't just broken, it was humiliated. His neighbors started whispering. The air felt heavy, like everyone was waiting for Trenton to explode. But that's not how he played it. He rebuilt the bridge stronger, cleaner, and, just between us, a little bit smarter. See, under those polished planks was a mechanism he'd cooked up, strong enough for a person, but put a few tons on it, and the middle would drop out, right into a pit of clay and water. Nothing dangerous, just humiliating. A trap? Maybe. Or maybe just a boundary, clear as day. Cole, his neighbor, figured it out. Legal revenge, Cole called it, with that half-laugh people get when they wish they'd thought of it first. Trenton called it creative boundary enforcement. And you know what? It worked. The next time Judith sent trucks across, the bridge gave way, right in front of half the neighborhood. Cement trucks sunk, driver screaming, Judith losing her mind. Everyone saw it. Even better, Trenton had a GoPro rolling the whole time. Patricia, the neighbor from down the street, started recording too, just in case Judith wanted to spin the story her way. When the cops came, Trenton was ready. Permits, survey maps, photos, he had it all, and Deputy Hanley made it clear. HOA isn't the law. Private land is private. If someone drove a cement truck where they weren't supposed to, that's on them. The crowd started laughing, just a little, and you could see the power draining out of Judith with every chuckle. But you know how people like Judith work. She didn't quit. The next day, the fines came. Nearly $5,000 for damaging communal property. Trenton just pinned his paperwork to the front door for everyone to see. He called the county. Inspector said his bridge was on his land. Everything legal, nothing to fine. At the next HOA meeting, Trenton showed up, first time in years, laid out every document, every photo, every official report. Neighbors started speaking up. He's right, someone said. You fined my son for a matching shed. This has gone too far. By Monday, Judith was suspended pending review. The neighborhood was quiet for the first time in months. No trucks, no threats, just the wind in the trees and the water under Trenton's bridge, his bridge, standing proud. Judith disappeared from view. Trenton didn't gloat. He just sat on his porch, coffee in hand, letting the calm settle in. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. A few weeks later, Judith showed up, not in a blazer, not with her clipboard, but in a gray sweater, looking tired and small. She apologized, admitted she'd gone too far, that she stopped seeing people as people, said the board dropped all the fines before she stepped down. And for the first time, Trenton saw the human being behind the rules, a woman who wanted order so badly she lost sight of respect. Did he forgive her? Maybe. Did he regret what he did? Not for a second. Because sometimes the strongest act of defiance isn't fighting back. It's standing your ground and letting the truth do the work. Boundaries aren't walls, he realized. They're lines of respect. You don't draw them to keep people out. You draw them to remind others where they shouldn't cross. If you stuck around till the end, tell me, what would you have done? Where's the line? Between justice and revenge? Between keeping order and just keeping control? Drop your thoughts below. I'll be here on the porch, watching the bridge, making sure the next storm knows exactly where. It stops that you'd think, after all that, the showdown, the collapsed truck, the public apology, the neighborhood would settle back into some kind of peace, right? You'd think folks would nod a little. Friendlier on their morning walks, let the sound of hammers and power tools drift off into the background, and let bygones be bygones. But life isn't a movie, and people don't change their stripes overnight. Yeah, things got quiet, but it wasn't the good kind of quiet. It was the hush that sits right before another storm. It started small. Judith disappeared, sure, but her influence hadn't. She had a handful of loyalists, folks who liked the old order, who liked knowing someone was in charge, even if that meant they had to keep their trash cans hidden and their wind chimes silent. They started gathering in driveways, trading rumors, frowning a little longer at Trenton's place, maybe hoping the balance of power might shift back their way. One afternoon, Trenton caught old Mrs. Weaver, Judith's closest ally, snapping photos of his rebuilt bridge with her cell phone, pretending to talk about azaleas to her husband. He just raised his mug in a silent toast. You want evidence? Lady? Take your best shot. The new HOA president, a soft-spoken guy named Daniel, called for a listening session at the rec center, a chance for neighbors to air out their issues without it turning into another courtroom drama. Trenton almost skipped it, but Cole showed up at his door, 2 coffees in hand, and said, "Come on, you're part of this mess. Might as well be part of the cleanup." So they went. And let me tell you, if you've never watched a room full of grown adults argue about mailbox heights and dog leashes for 2 hours, you're missing out on some real Tennessee theater. Somewhere in the middle of it, a new voice piped up. Young guy, maybe late 20s, wearing a county inspector's vest. Turns out his name was Malik, just moved in down the street. All these arguments about lines and rules, he said, but not a single one of you is talking about respect. The room kind of fell silent, and for a second, even Judith's loyalists looked unsure. Malik went on, "I've worked on public projects, I know red tape, but it's supposed to protect us, not divide us. If we're just using it to get back at each other, we're missing the point." That landed harder than you'd expect. Even Trenton, who'd spent half his life tangled up in permits and county codes, realized maybe there was something to what the kid was saying. The meeting broke up soon after, but the tension stayed. That night, as Trenton locked up the shed, he found a note taped to the porch door. No name, just neat handwriting. You may have won the fight, but you're losing the neighborhood. For a second, he felt that old anger bubble up. Was it Judith? Was it some busybody? Cole shrugged when Trenton showed him the note. Could be anyone. Or maybe it's just someone who misses the way things were. Maybe so, but Trenton knew one thing. He was done fighting for the sake of pride. He wanted real peace, not just a truce. So, he started reaching out. Nothing dramatic, just small things. He helped Mrs. Park fix her fence when the wind knocked it down, even though she used to side-eye him every time she drove by. He let the neighbor kids fish off his bridge again, showing them how to spot catfish in the muddy water, just like his old man did for him back in Memphis. He even showed Malik, the new inspector, the blueprints for his creative boundary enforcement, laughing about it over a couple of cold beers on the porch. Bit by bit, the chill started to thaw. Folks stopped by to chat, sometimes just for a minute, sometimes for an hour. They talked about everything but the HOA, gardens, football, the heat wave rolling in. Even Mrs. Weaver softened up, bringing over a peach pie as a kind of unspoken truce. Trenton figured he could get used to this. But you know how it goes. The moment you let your guard down, life throws you a curveball. One afternoon, a stranger knocked on his door. A woman in a suit, businesslike, carrying a thick folder. "Mr. Vale?" she asked. "I'm with the county zoning office. We received a formal complaint about unauthorized water diversion and bridge modifications." Trenton almost laughed. Here we go again. But this time, he was ready. He invited her in, laid out every permit, every survey, every official letter he'd saved from the saga with Judith. She nodded, flipping through the pages. "You're more organized than half the developers I deal with," she said, a smile finally cracking her serious mask. "Looks like you did everything right." As she left, she paused. Not everyone appreciates a homeowner who stands up for himself. But believe me, the county's on your side as long as you're above board. Trenton nodded, feeling a weight lift. He wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was showing everyone that you could stand your ground, follow the rules, and still keep your dignity. Word spread, maybe not as fast as gossip, but it spread. Neighbors started asking him for advice on their own projects. Judith, for all her past bluster, stayed away. Maybe she finally understood, or maybe she was just waiting for her chance to strike back in some new way. People like her never really vanish. But the neighborhood changed, little by little. The rules didn't loosen, exactly, but they felt less like weapons and more like guide rails. People started talking to each other again. The creek ran clear, and the bridge, his bridge, stood as proof that sometimes you have to let things break before you can rebuild something stronger. I guess that's the lesson, isn't it? Boundaries aren't just about property lines or wooden planks. They're about teaching people where respect begins and ends. Sometimes it takes a fight, sometimes a little humility, sometimes just a good neighbor and a cold beer on a hot day. Me? I'll keep building, keep mending, and keep standing my ground, even when the next storm rolls through. Because quiet strength isn't about never bending. It's about knowing when to stand firm, when to let go, and when to reach across that creek and offer a hand. And maybe, just maybe, that's what holds a neighborhood together, long after the trucks and the bluster are gone. Now, I'm curious, if this was your fight, would you have drawn your line in the mud, or would you have tried to make peace sooner? What matters more, winning or building something worth protecting? Go on, drop your thoughts below, because stories like this, they're only as real as the lessons we carry forward.